Thank you so much to Dipal, Chandra, Barua, who we all heard from now, who's from the Bright Green Energy Foundation, and also has a long CV, which we don't have time to go into here. With us, we also have Kjell Roland, who is the managing director of Norheim, development finance institution. And last but not the least, we have Bård Lahn. I think he's the guy I know who's been following the climate negotiations for the longest time, especially from the NGO side. And also last year, he published a book called The Climate Game, which takes us behind the scenes of the climate negotiations. So with these three distinguished gentlemen, we'll have a hopefully interesting conversation. I'd like to start with Dipal. You have a goal of reaching 75 million people with solar energy in Bangladesh. It's about half the population of the country, I think. Why solar?
Because we try solar and wind turbine and also biomass. But solar, we have a plain land, plenty of sunshine, 365 days, 340 days of sunshine, and a lot of people with electricity. Only problem was expensive in 1996, $7 per peak watt. Now it is $1, less than $1. But we have LED, everything is very synonymous with the solar energy. And people are enjoying it, plain land. So we create a financing mechanism, 15% down payment, remaining 85% they are paying from saving money from kerosene. So 3 liter, 4 liter kerosene, $1 1 liter, so $3, $4. So almost for the smaller system, close to the kerosene price. But bigger system, there are rich people, are comparatively good people also economically. They can buy a bigger system. They are watching color television, even a small fan. So they can pay more. But for the poor people, I would say, $20, 20-watt system package, battery for 5 years, and panel for 20 to 5 years, charge controller 3 years, LED for 4 years, 3-4 years. So I think it's economically feasible, and people are enjoying it. There was television, mobile phone charging, and education, lighting. So that brings a lot of good livelihood in the family. That's why I see there is now it's growing and the people enjoy it. And Bangladesh people, 50% people have no electricity. Because of solar, now 62% people have electricity.
That's good, and you're really on a good track. I want to ask you about something about the Norwegian debate. When we talk about the Norwegian oil and gas sector, an argument that's been used a lot both by the present Prime Minister and the foreign Prime Minister and a lot of other politicians and people from mainly the oil sector, I guess, is that we need to continue producing and exporting oil because there's a lot of people in this world that does not have energy. 1.2 or 1.3 billion people do not have energy, and that's been used as the reason for us continuing the oil production. What do you think about that?
Before going to the question, when I started 1996 Gramin Shakti, in 97 I trained in Norway about the solar energy. So at that time, NAPS Norway, you know, NAPS, NAPS Norway, they have Finland and Norway company. So we trained 7 days here in a very early stage, so it's very good. I would say I worked in the IPCC, 1.2 billion people without electricity. I believe if you consider the concentration of the people in Southeast Asia, almost 600 million, and the remaining in Africa. So in that 2 continents, you see a little bit in Latin America and other places. But if you consider that situation, I believe renewable energy can be alternative energy that can do, say, solar, or wind, or biomass. That can be done. And I believe there are a lot of sunshine in Southeast Asia and Africa. So instead of oil, that polluting environment, that you can use this energy for other purposes. But for immediately to give energy, I think renewable sources will be much better option than the oil and gas.
Thank you. Kjell Roland, you are from Norfund. Yeah, and you are one of Norway's instruments in making sure there's more renewable energy in developing countries. What can you do that others can't do?
Well, we are, as you said initially, we are a development finance institution. So we invest for development, for economic growth in poor parts of the world, creating employment and economic growth. For that to be the case, energy is essential. We need it. So we invest 50% of the capital is basically in renewable energy at the present. And I was actually here last year too. Then as this year, I was back from the same day, our investment committee. Last year, I reported back from about a decision to do a 300 megawatt wind power in Lake Turkana, it's called, in Kenya. Now they started digging early this month. Today, we had a final decision to do a 60 megawatt solar plant in Honduras. Actually, earlier this month, we also commissioned the first biogas plant in South Africa. It's a small one, but it's an important one, and it's caught a lot of attention in South Africa for the following reason. It's next to the BMW plant outside Joburg. The national utility is not able to provide electricity for growth in the BMW plant. So we agreed to set up this plant and provide electricity. So now they can expand, hire more people, and produce more BMWs for exports. So what I'm saying, we see this coming on a large scale. Since last year, we have also included, and I'm very proud of that, a strategic alliance with Scatec Solar to do solar. We see a lot of solar plants coming. Hopefully later this month, there will be 2 times 20 megawatt in Uganda that will be agreed with the government. What we need is partners. We are a minority investor. We always do equity, or more or less always. But we need the doers, the one who is actually able to do it on the ground. And that's the one that is most lacking. So that's why we work very closely with Statkraft and BKK in Bergen to do hydropower, with Scatec on solar, and with a lot of other local entrepreneurs developing renewable energy. But we need the doers, the industrial, those with the capability to identify, develop, and operate the plants. Actually, Norway, in particular true in hydropower and solar, we are at the present better positioned than probably any other country in Northwest Europe in doing this in scale in poor parts of the world.
Thank you. This morning, we started by hearing Jan Egeland talking about climate justice. And I would like to turn to Bård in asking, what responsibility does Norway have? We know that the IPCC came with its synthesis report just about a week ago, and it says that the poor has done the least to create climate change but are affected the most. So what does that say about our responsibility?
Well, how to share the responsibility of addressing climate change is really the big question, isn't it? That has been haunting the attempt to agree on an international climate change agreement for so many years. And I think it's important to realize the situation that many developing countries are starting from, where they see that they have large legitimate energy needs. They have a population that needs access to more energy, as we've heard from Bangladesh, while at the same time they realize that the northern countries, like Norway, have already spent so much of what we know to be the carbon budget that we have to stay within in order to avoid dangerous climate change, that there simply isn't space for them to develop in the way that we've done. And so the question is, how does the southern countries face this dilemma? And I think one very important part of the answer is finding ways to support the kind of initiatives that we've heard about from Bangladesh. And I think it's extremely important that a new international climate change agreement is set up in such a way that it allows for those kind of initiatives to access support, rather than setting up overly complex schemes that are focused on marginal reductions in carbon emissions, while the situation in many developing countries is that it's a matter of creating the sustainable development and increasing the energy available without increasing their emissions. But the other very important part of the answer, I think, is for us as as countries of the north, like Norway, to realize the kind of responsibility that we have, and which is a double responsibility. Because if we want to help developing countries access the energy they need while staying within the very tight carbon budget that we have, there are only two ways of doing that. We can help them increase access to energy without increasing emissions, and we can reduce our own emissions so that we leave more space in the remaining carbon budget for them to develop. And I think we have to do both. That's probably, for me, the most important thing to take away from the discussion on climate justice. And that's also why this argument that you alluded to earlier about Norway exporting more oil and gas because poor people in the world need energy, to me is just turning things completely upside down. What we need to do to increase their chances of accessing energy is actually to reduce our own emissions.
Our time is more or less up, but I want to ask Dipal one last question. In 2.5 weeks, the climate negotiations start in Peru. And in how many days? In a few days, also there's a pledging meeting for the Green Climate Fund in Berlin. What are your expectations to Norway and other rich countries?
I think I agree with him what he mentioned rightly. And in this region, you see the Denmark showing a very bold step that decided by 2050, no fossil fuel, 100% renewable sources. So a bold decision. If you have a mission, you have a vision, you can achieve it. I believe the Green Climate Fund in the process, I think from the next year, supposed to be, this can play a very important role for energy access for 1.2 billion people, and also how to reduce the carbon emission. Unless we have a vision, unless we have a concerted effort, we cannot achieve it. Even today, we have a zero emission conference. We are sensitizing the whole things, not in Norway. It is the whole world. So this is an international effort in that sense. I think both way, I believe want to facilitate 1.2 billion people without electricity, 3 billion people with proper access for the cooking facilities, and also reducing carbon emission. You know, see, if you see in the newspaper, a lot of international organizations leaving China because they have the weather is so peculiar, and people have no breathing space because of the pollution in the air. So nobody take challenge to a careerist living in there. So we have to do it. Along the economic development, we have to think about the carbon emission reduction also. Otherwise, it would be a different kind of development that the civilization cannot afford it. I think the climate fund, Green Climate Fund, can play a very effective role, and that will really create a basis for a climate movement in a way that what he mentioned, the climate justice or a climate or an energy security, everything can be accommodated.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.